I hope that this talk will bring to you something, because for many of you, a big part of this talk is already known from you. And since after the talks of yesterday, many parts of my slides have been destroyed, already presented. So I hope it will remain something after all. So this is a general presentation about how to represent interacting criteria. So I have slightly modified the title to be a little bit more general. So as you know, in many practical problems, you have interacting criteria. And in most of the methods of decision aids, this interaction phenomenon is ignored because it's treated by the weighted sum, and weighted sum cannot represent interaction. So as you know also, the Choquet integral is a very common mean to treat interacting criteria. And what I will show in this talk is the following. So I will try to build a model from scratch with interacting criteria and show how we naturally obtain the Choquet integral. We can also obtain the multilinear extension model. Okay. Second aim is to to study a bit interaction in general, not only restricted to Choquet integral. Okay. And finally, if I have time, then I will present how to cope in practical situation when the capacity is not completely determined. Okay. So this is something a bit different from the two other points. So first we start with basic things, but you know them already from yesterday. It has been repeated many times. So my notation will be also rather standard. N is a set of criteria, and capacity is a set function on N being monotonous and vanishing on the empty set, to put it simply. Additionally, you can have this normalization, okay? But this is not always like this. So now the Choquet integral. This is a definition. I will not detail the beauties of this formula because, in fact, you can follow all the talk without knowing the definition. It's enough to know the properties, after all. But anyway, since I think you will be disappointed if I don't speak about this formula, I present immediately another one which is equivalent and maybe easier to explain, because in this case, as you see, so f is a function you have to integrate. It's considered here as a vector because it's finite space. Then fi is a coordinate of f. And if I put a parenthesis around the index, it means that simply I have reordered the coordinates in increasing order. Okay? Then, as you can see, if you forget about this permutation, then it's simply a weighted sum, because this is a weight. It's computed with capacity, in fact. It's a difference of two values of the capacity. So this is a weighted sum, but the coefficients, the weights, depend on the ordering. So now let us try to construct a multi-criteria decision model from the beginning and to see what happens. Of course, I will have to simplify a bit the things, otherwise it will take too much time. But let us consider a set of alternatives, which is a Cartesian product, as always, x1 times xn, and the index set is always n. So each alternative is a vector, and each component of the vector is a value of the alternative for this descriptor or attribute. Then I define utility or value function on each attribute, okay, which quantifies the satisfaction of the decision maker for this value. Okay. I define some preference relation on the set of alternatives. And then I would like to represent the preference of the decision maker by this model, which is called the decomposable model, where f is some strictly increasing function, and then you have as arguments all scores of the given alternative with respect to all attributes. Okay, that's the aim, to do this. Okay, so first question is, under which condition can we do this? And second question, if supposing that it's possible to have this, then how to build the utility functions, how to build this aggregation function f. Okay? That's the question we want to answer now. So, and to, of course, the question, this is well known, okay? So I will not spend too much time on this part. This is quite well known for measurement theory. And the problem I just explained is the ordinal measurement problem. And we know that by Birkhoff-Milgram theorem that it's possible to have such a representation if my preference relation is complete intransitive, and if the set X of alternative quotiented by the indifference relation as a denumerable order dense, countable order dense subset. Okay? So this is a definition, but maybe I will skip this. So now this is first part of the answer. Second part of the answer is that you can have this decomposable model with aggregation function f, strictly increasing, and utility function u1, un, if only if, in addition to the previous conditions, your preference relation is weakly separable, which means that, in fact, if you prefer this alternative to this one, it means the only difference is on attribute I, and otherwise it's common. Then you can change the common part without reversing the preference. Okay, that's the meaning of weakly separable. Okay, so doing so, we have answered our first question. That's done. Now, second question is how to obtain these utility functions, how to obtain the aggregation function. Okay? So let us do this. So now we turn to another domain. We look at psychology. And what is important in decision is the notion of affect. This is a definition given by Slovic. And so affect is a specific quality of goodness and badness, experienced as a feeling state, and demarcating a positive or negative quality of stimulus. So it's maybe a bit difficult to understand for who are not psychologists. But in fact, what is important here, there are two things which are very important. First is that it is necessary to have reference levels into our decision attributes, because it's proven by experience, by experiments, that if some attributes in the decision problem have no reference level, then they are not so much taken into account into the decision, because the decision maker is unable to tell if the values taken by this attribute are good or not. So, okay, so I will not detail more, but there are many, many experiments on this. And second is that the affect is bipolar in nature, as you can see in the second point of the definition. There is a clear frontier between the positive and the negative stimulus. It means something which is felt as good or bad, or satisfactory or unsatisfactory. Okay. We should take this into account when building a decision model. Because if you want to, at least if you want to be descriptive, then you have to take this into account. So let us reconsider the notion of scale, and let us introduce these two notions. So let us take a set of objects, alternatives, with some, let us say, a preference relation, but it can be something else, okay? A pre-order, at least, okay? Then we have a numerical scale representing this pre-order. Then we say that 0, which is a particular object, we call it the neutral level, is a particular object such that for any object which is strictly preferred to 0, this object is declared as good. Otherwise, if it is strictly less preferred, then it's declared as bad. Okay? And we set naturally the value of the scale for this neutral level is set to 0, so that we have positive numbers for good alternatives and negative numbers for bad ones. So now a bipolar scale is a scale with a neutral level, and otherwise it's called a unipolar scale. Okay? So in decision making, naturally you have this bipolar scale simply because affect is one of the main components in human behavior in decision making. Okay? So now about the second phenomenon, the first one, in fact, the reference level. So usually, but not always, your scales here are unbounded. That is to say, for example, if you take the notion of satisfaction, you can always find an object which is more satisfactory than a given one. So you have not clear upper bound. Okay? So most of the time you have unbounded scales. So you cannot find such a bar. So now, but you know that we need the reference levels because this is psychology which tells us. So here we can use the notion of satisficing level introduced by Herbert Simon in his bounded rationality theory. Okay? It postulates that it exists always such kind of a level which is satisfactory for the decision maker, even if decision maker knows that it is possible to get more satisfactory alternatives in the absolute way. Okay? And then we take this as a reference level and put the value 1 to the scale for this particular alternative. Okay? So now, using this, it's possible to build the utility functions or value functions on each attribute using the Macbeth technology methodology of Van Snick and Banai-Costa. So just a summary of it. So you need these neutral levels and satisfactory levels on each attribute. Then you will consider a set of objects these particular objects, which means that in fact you consider one attribute where you can vary freely the value of the attribute, and for all others you fix it at the neutral level. Okay, 0, 1, and so on. Okay. Then you choose a finite subset of it, because it must be finite for the methodology to work. And then you ask questions to the decision maker for each pair AB in this set. You ask if this is more attractive, and also if it is slightly more attractive or strongly more attractive, and so on. Then doing so, you can build an interval scale based on the answers of the decision maker. Okay? And then you get the scale ui, the utility function ui, which represents the overall value, overall satisfaction of this alternative, okay, where it's neutral on every criterion except one. And now it's easy to solve the commensurability problem because the neutral levels and the satisfactory levels have an absolute meaning for the decision maker. So you put naturally all neutral level to 0 and all satisfactory level to 1. Okay? So that's mainly the idea, how to build the utility functions. Okay? So what is important to note here is that to the decision maker, you ask questions about alternatives. You don't isolate an attribute. You don't say, is the price, this price more attractive than this price? You take objects, for example, if you compare apartments, cars, and so on, you ask to the decision maker to compare 2 cars or 2 apartments, not 2 prices, not 2 engines, and so on. Okay, that's the important point. So now let us go to the interaction now. So let us consider 3 alternatives evaluated on 2 criteria only, A, B, C. So for A, the scores are 0.4 on both criteria. And for B and C, you have a score of 0.1, but simply inverted. So what is the preference of the decision maker? If the decision maker is looking for something which is, let us say, balanced between the 2 criteria, then for sure he will not choose either B or C because they are quite unbalanced. They are very satisfactory on one criterion, but not on the other one. So, although A is not so good on both criteria, finally, you are obliged to say that A is better than B, which is indifferent to C, more or less. Okay? But if you say so, it's not possible to represent this preference by a weighted arithmetic mean. There's no weights able to represent this preference. So how to solve the problem? Simply that you put a weight not only on the criteria, but also on the group 1, 2 of the 2 criteria, which means that you put some importance on the group, in fact, the group 1, 2. Saying that it's more important to satisfy the group than the individual criteria. Okay? Satisfaction of only one of the criteria is not so important for the decision maker. Okay? So that's the idea. And then if you generalize it, then you come up with this kind of construction. So again, let us consider the set of criteria. And we will ask questions about all binary alternatives, that is to say, alternatives which are satisfactory, the level 1, satisfactory on a group of criteria, S, and neutral elsewhere. Okay. Then you consider all binary alternatives. And by the MacBeth methodology, it's possible to get an interval scale representing the preference in a quantitative way. Okay? So, since it is an interval scale, you need to fix it by fixing 2 values arbitrarily. So, naturally, you would be inclined to do the following. If you consider the object which is neutral on every criterion, then naturally you put the value 0 for it. And if you consider the object which is satisfactory on every criterion, then you put the value 1. Okay? Now, another condition is the following. If you take two binary alternative, one which is built with T and the other with S, and S is included in T, it means that the first one, this one, dominates the second one because it's better, at least better on each criterion. Okay? So because of this, you are obliged to impose that the overall score of the second one is smaller than the overall score of the first one. Okay? But now let us make a change in the notation. Since this depends only on S, you can simply call it V of S. Okay? And then you realize that V is a capacity, because it exactly matches the definition of a capacity. Okay, so naturally you are led to the two capacities when you deal with interacting criteria. Okay? So now, last question is how now to build this aggregation function f. So if you look at what we have done so far, then because of our normalization with the utility functions, so this overall score of a binary alternative S, 1S, 0 minus S, is in fact you aggregate the vector which is composed from 1 on criteria in S and 0 elsewhere. So, and this is, we have seen by definition, this is equal to V of S. But function f, so we want to define it. And these equations for every S simply defines f on all vertices of the hypercube 0, 1, the unit hypercube. Okay? So now that's a part of the problem is solved, but now we want to determine f inside the hypercube, not only on the vertices. So how to do this? Simplest way to do it is to do it by interpolation. When you know a function only on some points, everybody will tell you that if you have no other information, there is nothing left than interpolation simply. But of course, there are many, many ways of interpolating a function. And if we want something the simplest as possible, first you will take a linear interpolation. You cannot do simpler. But in this case, it's not enough to say linear, because you have interpolation in the volume, in a cube. So which closest point would you take to make this interpolation? Here we want to take the fewest possible points. Okay? That's because you could take all vertices of the hypercube and take a kind of average according to the distance of the point to all vertices. That's also you could do. But here we want to be parsimonious, to take as few as possible vertices. How to do this? This is rather simple, because if you want to take the fewest number of vertices, then you are obliged to surround the given point x by a simplex, because a simplex is the simplest polyhedron. I say the polyhedron with the fewest number of vertices, okay? Which is its number and is n plus 1. Okay, so you have to split your hypercube into simplices. Which one? If you want to get rid of the constant term, then you are obliged that all simplices contain the 0 point, and then there is no other choice, in fact, to take than to take the canonical simplices, that is to say, those corresponding to the ordering of the coordinates of the point, okay, for a given permutation. And if you do this and compute the coefficient of the interpolation, then you obtain this formula. This is the result of the linear interpolation. And if you remember my first slides, then you will recognize that this is the Choquet integral. So the Choquet integral is the simplest, in the sense, parsimonious and linear interpolation between the vertices. Okay? So the conclusion is that of course, within our assumptions, we have obtained the Choquet integral as, let us say, a natural model. Okay? So now, is it possible to do it differently? Of course, it's possible, because you can interpolate in many different ways. And the other very typical way is to take all the vertices instead of only the fewest possible. And then if you do this, you get the multilinear model. Okay? So now, to introduce it properly, I need some additional definitions. So now we go to pseudo-Boolean functions. Okay? Pseudo-Boolean function is, in fact, the same as a set function. It simply changes the notation. A pseudo-Boolean function is defined, let us say, by a symbol f. It's a function over the vertices of the hypercube to the real line. Okay? And by the identification between sets and characteristic vectors of sets, then you see that the set of pseudo-Boolean functions is the same as the set of set functions. So indifferently, I will write f of 1s, where 1s is a vector here, or f of s simply. Okay? So now it's well known that there are two main representations of a pseudo-Boolean function. The first one, the simplest one, is this one. Simplest because it's almost immediate to obtain this expression. Okay? So it's a polynomial expression with products of things. Okay. Now, the second one is much simpler. If you rearrange the terms here, you can obtain this simpler expression, which is a sum of monomials. But then you have to work a little bit to obtain the coefficients. And these coefficients are, in fact, simply the Möbius transform of the set function f, defined by these relations. Okay? So now, next topic is how to extend pseudo-Boolean functions to the whole hypercube. So again, we have the same kind of problem. How to extend from the vertices to the inside of the hypercube. Then you have two very famous extensions, which are the Owen multilinear extension. Simply, as you see, you take exactly the same expression as this, but you allow x to be inside the hypercube. Okay, so you get this. The second one is the Lovász extension, where you replace the product by the minimum, and they coincide on the vertices. So you can do this. And of course, you can do still in many different ways with many other operators. Okay? So, and it is well known that under this condition, of course, the Lovász extension of f is in fact the Choquet integral with respect to f considered as a set function. Okay? So you have this expression here. Okay? So now let's go back to utility functions. Okay? So if you want to build the utility functions on the attributes, you would like to do it in a simpler way and simply ask questions relative to the attributes only. So you compare prices. Is this price better than this one? And so on. This would be simpler. Okay? But you can do this not in every... You must satisfy some condition, in fact. And what are the conditions? here is a condition which is called weak difference independence. Let us see what it means. So first, this star relation means it's a quaternary relation where you compare pair of objects. Okay? And the meaning of this is the difference between xy and yi is greater than the difference between zi and wi. That's the meaning of this. Now, you can ask questions about single attributes, isolated attributes, if only if this is satisfied. It means if you compare objects which are different on attribute I and common elsewhere, okay, you can do it at the condition that if you change the common part, then it will not reverse this quaternary preference, this difference measurement. Okay, that's the idea. And what can be shown using some result of Dyer and Sarin applied to some theorem in Kini-Raifa, then the conclusion is that the quaternary relation satisfies this weak difference assumption, which means you can work on isolated attributes if only if your model, your underlying model, is a multilinear extension model, the MLE model, and not the Choquet integral. So if you want to use the Choquet integral, you cannot build the utility function in a separate way. You must take this MacBeth methodology, asking questions only on, not on attributes, but on alternatives with fixed level or for some attributes. Okay? So you have three solutions. Either you use the previous method I shown with the MacBeth methodology and the Choquet integral, or you don't, or you use a technique proposed by Christophe Labruche some years ago, which does not use a commensurability assumption, okay? Or you use something else. You don't use the Choquet integral, but the multilinear extension, or still something else like GAI, for example. Okay? So now let us go to the analysis of interacting criteria. So as a summary, our model has the following form, the decomposable form. The utility functions are interval scales. We have two levels, a neutral and satisfactory levels on each attribute. And F is a Choquet integral with respect to a capacity, or this multilinear extension also with respect to a capacity. So since both are extension of pseudo-Boolean functions, so we have this property, okay, which means that the capacity represents the overall score of alternatives on binary alternatives. Okay. So now let us try to think about interaction modeled by a capacity. So we reason only on binary alternatives, in fact, only. Okay? So if we take two criteria, then we will say that there is a positive interaction or synergy between them if the satisfaction of both criteria is much better, is much more valuable than the satisfaction of them separately, which can be translated as follows. So as you see here, so this is the added value, in some sense, of both criteria I and j. And this is greater than the sum of the added values of the criteria taken individually. Okay? And if you rewrite this, simplify the term, then you get this expression, which is the key expression. Okay? So as you see, this is an alternating sum of adding two or one or no criteria, as you can see. Then negative energy is defined similarly, then you get an inequality in the reverse sense. And independence criteria means there is no interaction, and here you get 0. So now the question is, this is defined for a given S, what to do for every S, every situation. Okay? So then you have the choice, in fact. This is the first possibility. You take an average, a weighted average of this expression, and the weights are similar to the weights used in the Shapley value. This was proposed by Murofushi and Soneda, but also in some old paper of Owen under the name of co-value. Then this can be generalized. This was only for pairs, but you can generalize for any set of criteria. You get this simply. And what is interesting here is that if you compute this for every T, for every subset of criteria, then you get an equivalent representation of V, which means that you can recover V from all the interaction indices. Okay? So this gives the idea of transform over set functions. If we think about set functions in general, or pseudo-Boolean function if you want, then we can define transform as linear invertible mapping, one-to-one. Okay? So for example, the Möbius transform is such an example, but the interaction transform I just defined is another example because it's invertible. And the computation of the inverse is not easy. It's rather combinatorial. It involves the Bernoulli numbers. Okay? And still two examples of transform are the Banzhaf interaction transform. So it's very close to the previous one, but only the coefficients are different, are much simpler because they are simply power of n, or power of 2. Okay? And this is the inverse formula. And a last one, which is less known in decision making, but well known in computer science, is the Fourier transform. And as you can see, the definition is rather close. You just change S minus T to a S intersection T. That's the only difference. And in fact, you can find the relation between the two. And you see that it's just a matter of coefficient depending on S, on the cardinality of S only. Okay? So now let us think more generally. So as a summary, it was a definition of interaction, but limited to binary alternatives. So now I would like to define interaction in much more general way. So I take any kind of aggregation function, and I would like to define the interaction induced by this aggregation function. How to do this? We consider the notion of variation. So if this aggregation function is defined on the interval AB, so the total variation of f with respect to one coordinate is simply this difference. For the coordinate in question, you put the highest value, the highest possible value, minus the lowest possible value. Okay? Then you can consider variations of variations with on different coordinates. Okay? And you get this expression. Now, so these are just examples. Maybe I'll skip this. And you can generalize this to any kind, to any set of coordinates. K is a set of coordinates, then you get this. And the interaction index of this subset of criteria K is simply the integral of this total variation for all possible inputs of the aggregation function, and just normalized by the volume. Okay? So you have something between at most equal to 1. Okay? So Now let us apply this to Choquet integral and multilinear extension to see what happens. And this is the result. First, if you take the Choquet integral, then the interaction index that you find by the previous definition coincides with the interaction index defined on the capacity I explained before. And if you take the multilinear model, the interaction index you find in this case are the Banzhaf interaction indices I defined before. So you see, for each aggregation function, you should take the right definition of interaction indices. Okay? So what is interesting is that there are two different ways to find the same formula which reinforce its justification in some sense. Okay? So this is also maybe this I skip as a remark. Now last remark about this interaction indices. There is another way to define interaction using the Sobol indices which are related to ANOVA. If you take a multivariate function with identically uniform random variables, then you can decompose the function under a sum such that, and this sum is defined with expected value, the conditional expected values, with y is simply equal to f of x, okay, yes, and you fix some variables, okay, and you consider this as a function of this fixed variable. Okay, you do this for every variable, every pair, and so on. You continue like this. And then the decomposition is such that every term here, except the first one, has zero mean, zero expectation. Okay? And then it follows that the variance is simply the sum of the variance of these components, that is to say the square, the expectation of the squares of these quantities. And so this is Christophe Labroche and me, we have started to study this as a new kind of way to consider the interaction. And surprisingly, we have seen that if we apply this to the over extensions of the multilinear model, then what we get is exactly, or up to a coefficient, to the Fourier transform of the set function. Okay? So the Fourier transform is very close to the Banzhaf interaction index also, okay? But it's closer to the Fourier. Okay, so we hope to continue to study this with a Choquet integral and to see what happens. So now I have last topic. I don't know how much time, maybe 7. Okay, so I will try to go quickly. It's not so long. So now it's something different. The problem is the following: you have you use a Choquet integral into a multi-criteria decision model, and the problem is that you are not able to get all the coefficients of the capacity because you cannot ask so many questions to the decision maker, or because your learning set is not enough big, in fact, not enough large. Okay? So what happens is that you will have a capacity which is defined on a subset of the Boolean lattice, not for all coalitions. So then I can skip maybe this first slide. Okay, then I explain this. So the consequence of this is that since the capacity is completely determined, you cannot compute the overall score of any alternative, because it may be the case that the function induced by this alternative is not measurable. Okay, you cannot compute it with. There are missing coefficients. Okay, so and this is very problematic because you would like to compute the Choquet integral for any kind of alternative, no restriction. Okay, so how to do this? So here is a methodology to do it. We propose this. So this is a joint work with Ulrich Feigl. The method is to decompose a game into a sum of two totally monotone games. It means a totally monotone games has a positive Möbius transform everywhere. So you just take the Möbius representation of V and you separate the sets with a positive Möbius transform and the set with a negative Möbius transform. So doing so, you can write V as a sum of two totally monotone games. Okay? Now you define an integral for totally monotone game only. Doing so. So what is this complicated expression? In fact, this is not so complicated because you take a function f and you are looking for all sub-decomposition of f. That means every sum of step functions such that the sum is always smaller than f. So you make a lower approximation by step function of your function f. Okay? You of course with this step function must use only the set in the set system, the allowed set, the set for which you know the capacity. Okay? So and so you are looking for the best such sub-decomposition, the decomposition giving the highest value of this. What is this? It's simply the capacity in question, B, multiplied by these coefficients in your sub-decomposition. Okay? This is an equivalent expression. Maybe I don't detail it. And then, since this is defined only for totally monotone game, for any game V, you just take the difference between these two expressions, because V is decomposed as V plus minus V minus. Okay? So now the integral is defined for every capacity. So what is the properties of this capacity? First, it's positive homogeneous. For the unanimity game, this I didn't define. Maybe I skip this. Okay, you have this well-known formula, which is valid if f has some property is closed under union in a weak sense. Okay, then you have this well-known formula giving the expression of the Choquet integral with respect to the Möbius transform. It's exactly the same as the classical formula. Okay. And again, if under this assumption, in fact, your integral, your new integral here, is equal to a classical Choquet integral with respect to a capacity V hat, which is defined by this expression. So the V hat of S is simply the integral, in this sense, of the characteristic function 1S. Okay? So, you have also additional properties related to superadditivity and supermodularity. But maybe this, because of time, I will skip the remaining properties. Okay, and I finish with references. So you can find most of the material of the talk in these papers, especially the two survey papers we wrote together, Christophe and me. And this is about all the transforms and the relation between the transforms. And also in this book you can find the same. And this is for the last part of the talk. Okay. Thank you very much.